Hello everyone, and welcome to Eduonix's Introduction to Microsoft Excel. In this section, we're going to cover formulas. So let's talk about what a formula is in Excel. It is a function. It is a function that consumes one or many input cells and produces one and only one output cell. For example, you have the sum function. Now the sum function can consume three inputs, namely 2, 1, and 4, and it'll add them up and produce the output 7. This is what a function is in general, and specifically what a formula is in Excel. Now there are many formulas in Excel, and they can be divided up into different categories of formulas. Here they're listed: arithmetic, date and time, so on and so forth. In this module, we're going to cover arithmetic and logical functions. And in the subsequent course, we'll cover text, statistical, and information. The rest of them are a bit out of scope for these courses. But it's more important to understand. However, it is more important to understand how formulas work in Excel, as opposed to understanding how each formula works and what it does. Getting an overall big picture will help you pick up any formula in any version of Excel and use it pretty effectively. So let's jump in and start talking about some formulas. Here I have a list of numbers in Excel given here, and we're going to calculate to start these statistics. So let's jump in. So basically the way the formula works is you can start by typing here and equal to, and then the name of the formula. In this case, the name of the formula is sum. So let's type that in. We open parentheses, and we select all of the cells we want to be included in the sum function. These will be the inputs. We go to the end of the list and hit enter, and we get the answer. Now, I knew that function sum was just called sum, but it's not so obvious in many of the other cases. So if you want to do something and you have an idea of what you want to do, but you don't know the name of the formula to use, the ideal way to go about it is to clicking the FX button here. And this will give you a list of all of the functions. So you can go to the categories and select the one within the category. You can just go to all, and you can see all the functions Excel has to offer. So we want to find the average. So it's likely the average is going to be in the statistical functions. And here it is. So let's use it. Now it opens up this dialog box, which is pretty convenient. You can type in whatever numbers you want here, or you can also type in the cells that you would like to use, like such. You select this cell and it ends up as E12. Over here you can select this cell as E19. And if you want to select a range of numbers, it's also pretty simple. You just go in and select the list, the range that you want. So in the dialog box over here, you can see what is happening. It's picking up all the numbers to sum here, and it's incrementing the range in this box. So let's use them all and hit enter. Now we have the average also. So these are pretty basic formulas in Excel. The thing to note here is that the inputs to these formulas was this list of numbers over here. So let's see how many there are. It starts at 2, goes down to 40, so they're about 39. But the easier way to do it is to use the count function. So again, we type equal to count, and we select the range that we want. And boom, here we have it. So again, all of these functions consume this list of number and produce only one output that is in the cell, that is shown in the cell that the formula is in. So if you go over here, you can see this value of the cell is 52.87179, And up here, you can read the formula that it's been used. If you go to this cell, it has no formula, so it'll just show you whatever is in the cell up in the FX bar. And there you have it. So keep in mind, this is how functions work. Now, not all functions need to have multiple inputs. For example, we could write the sum function with just one input, and we get 2. There are even some functions that don't require any input by the user. For example, the today function, which will show you the today's date. We leave these brackets empty because we don't provide it with any input. And we hit enter, and we get the date today. Now, the min and max function are also pretty straightforward. You again select your range of cells, and you're done. Min, you get a 0 because there is 0 in here. Let's talk about something more interesting. Let's talk about referencing. What we can do with formulas is we can drag a formula down. So if you have min here, you could potentially drag it out here, and this will give you another min function. But if you look closely, what this has done is it's changed from this original min, which was working on A2 to A40. This has changed and is working from B2 to B40. This is called relative referencing. Anytime you drag a function or a formula outside of a and drag it into a different cell, this is what will happen. This will also happen when you copy it. So let's say we go and copy, and then we paste it out here. And we paste it out here. This has changed it to C2 to C40, so it's summing this column. And we get 0 again for min because there's nothing in there, so it just gives you a 0. See, if you put a 5 here, you get a 5 here, because 5 is the only number in there. But if you put a 6 here now, you'll still get 5, because 5 is the smallest. And again, if you put a 1, you'll get a 1. Same here. These are all min functions. This is called absolute referencing. Now what we can do is we can have something called this is called relative referencing, but what we can do is we can have something called absolute referencing. The way to do that is when you have this range of cells, you add a $sign in front of all the letters and the numbers. That is in front of all the row names and all the column names. So now, no matter where you copy or paste this, it'll be the same. See, this is A2, this one is A2 to A40. The one in column F is also A2 to A40. Now, let's talk about this one for one more second. Let's drag this, instead of to the right, let's drag this down. So now what has happened is, let's take a look. Up here, you had C2 to C40. Down here, you have C3 to C41. So it has incremented the row numbers by 1. And as opposed to if you drag it horizontally, it will increment the column names by 1, keeping the row names constant. This is important to realize. When you drag it horizontally, or when you copy it in the same row, the column names change. And when you drag it down vertically, or you copy it in the same column, the row names change. As evidenced here, C2 to C40, C3 to C41. Between these two, because we dragged it down one, the rows changed. And when we drag it to the right, the columns changed. So what we can do now is we can only absolutely reference the rows while relatively referencing the columns. So we remove the $signs from in front of the columns and not in front of the rows. Now what will happen is when you copy it in the same row, the column names will change like before. So I copied it here. Let me do that again. I copy it from here and paste it here. So now you see it's A2 to A40 has become B2 to B40. This is just like if you hadn't referenced anything at all. But if you copy this cell down, now when the rows should have been incremented, they didn't. They're the same as before, B2 to B40, B2 to B40. You see the difference? It is important to realize what is happening here. If I have here absolutely referenced just the row names. So whenever the row names are supposed to change, they won't. And the row names are supposed to change when you copy things down in the same column. But the column names will change when you copy things down in the same row. Or even a different row and a different column. So if you take this A2 here and you put it over here in a completely different row and a completely different column, the row numbers have not changed, but the column numbers have. If we remove the absolute referencing here, and we copy this and paste it in this row, you can see that both the row names and the column names have all changed. So over here, we had A2 to A40, and over here, we have H12 to H50. So a way to visualize this is if you double click on this cell, over here it has highlighted the range it is using. So this is the range of numbers we had used. The same way, you can go in here, and this is the range of cells it's using. Completely different from before. And that's because the row names and the column names have changed together and consistently. So you might be wondering what the rules are and why it is consistent, or even if it is consistent in the first place. Let's take a look at what the rules are when relative referencing is involved. Let's just delete all these cells. So if you have this cell of min going from A2 to A40, you can double click it, see that it uses this range of cells. Now if you copy it over one cell to the right, and paste, now the range that it is using has moved one cell to the right as well. And if you copy it two cells to the right, the range would have moved two cells to the right as well. So the range has moved two cells to the right, but the size of the range has not changed. Because you can see it starts from here at 2, just as before, and it ends at 40, just as before. So the size of the range never changes. But what changes is the position of it. If you copy this cell down one cell, as you can guess, the range would move down one cell. So earlier it encompassed this 5, now the 5 is out and it will go down to beyond our original list of numbers. List of number ends here, the range goes down all the way here. And you can take it further. You can copy it down one and to the right one, and that same thing will happen to the range. It'll move down one and to the right one. See, here it is, starting now at 4, when originally over here in the original min, it started at 2. And it's moved to the right 1 as well. But the size of the range never changes. And if you're working with Excel, a lot of times in the formulas that you do, this becomes really important, that the size of the range does not change. In examples where you have a given data set that you have to calculate some formulas on, it's good to know that the range of the formulas will never change. You can just move the range from one column to another. And since it's so useful that the range never changes, Excel allows you to name a range. So if you select your range and go up here, you can give it a name. You can give it a name. List of num. And anytime now you want to select it, all you have to do is say list of num, and it'll select the range exactly.